Welcome back to the Reading and Writing Podcast. My guest today is Terri Libenson, author of the new novel Remarkably, Ruby. Terri is the Reuben Award-winning cartoonist of the recently retired syndicated comic strip, The Pajama Diaries. She is also the New York Times bestselling author of the Emmy and Friends series. Terri, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
If someone listening hasn't yet heard about your illustrated novel, Remarkably Ruby, how would you describe the novel? And I should ask, do you refer to this yourself as a graphic novel or a novel with illustrations?
Well, it's kind of both. I refer to it as a hybrid book because it's part illustrated novel and part graphic novel. It's told in two different artistic styles, I guess you can call it, because it features two different characters and their points of view of kind of the same situation. So Ruby and Mia are the two main characters. Ruby's chapters are told in that illustrated novel format, kind of like a Diary of a Wimpy Kid, where you have a lot of text that has small little doodly illustrations mixed in. And then Mia's chapters are pure graphic novel or comics, however you'd like to call it. So the story is about these two girls, Ruby and Mia. They are ex-pals, and the story revolves around how one has moved on from their friendship and the other has not. It also features a brand new poetry club as well as a class election. Ruby, who is very socially awkward, always kind of says the wrong thing, but she really knows how to express herself in writing. She loves to write. She especially loves poetry. So she joins the brand new poetry club at Lakefront Middle School. And Ruby, or Mia, I'm sorry, she's kind of an opposite character in nature. She's a lot more outgoing. She's a perfectionist. She's a doer. She likes to really be in the front and center and kind of take control of things. And she's running for class president. So it's got a lot of interesting dynamics going on. And I absolutely loved writing this book.
That's great. And do you have a sense when you're working on this, kind of the age group of your readers, or what you're thinking? Is it preteens, teens, or do you have a sense when you're doing the actual work?
Sure. So the characters are mostly in seventh grade, age 13, 12, 13, that age range. But my readers tend to skew a little bit younger. Usually the sweet spot, I always say, is between fourth and sixth grade. That's kind of that tends to be my readership. The books are intended for ages 8 to 12, but I always say it kind of depends on the reader. Sometimes it skews a little younger if you have a really avid reader, or maybe a reader who really loves comics. And it's the same for older kids as well. Some older kids might get into it because they just love comics or just love this type of storytelling.
That's great. And I'm curious, do you remember the original idea or impetus for this specific novel, Remarkably Ruby?
Yes, it's kind of funny, actually. In my last book, Truly Tyler, the fifth one in the series. Oh, and by the way, you can read any of these books as standalones, or you can read them in order. It doesn't really matter, by the way. So in my fifth book, Tyler, in the very end of the story, I show a little illustration of Ruby, who just won a poetry contest as part of this big student showcase at the middle school. And it's just a tiny little thing, but it gave me the spark of an idea for the next book, because I had it in my mind that I would make this background character. She's also known as Baked Bean Girl. That's the nickname I gave her. I've been wanting to kind of throw her into the forefront for a while. So when I turned her into a main character for this book, I thought of that whole student showcase contest, and I thought, oh, maybe I should just ride with that and have Ruby really into poetry. So that's how that happened.
Well, as you mentioned earlier, these novels are kind of a um, combination between kind of a illustrated text similar to Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and then also um, you have the chapters, as you mentioned, from Mia's perspective that are more graphic novels. I'm curious, what's the creation process for working on one of these novels? Do you write the text and then illustrate? Do the illustrations come first? Is it just a organic process? What does that look like?
Sure. So I divide them into blocks. I do everything pretty much separately. I learned that early on because there was one point where I was writing and I was doing all the illustrations at once, and then of course, the story had to be rewritten, and I had to scrap all the art. So now what I do is I write the entire manuscript first, and I don't add any art. What I do is I just indicate where the artwork's going to go and what it's going to be in a different colored font. So usually it's typed out in red, and that way my editor knows that's the artwork, and I get pretty detailed. So I usually say what the artwork's going to look like in the book. And then when everything gets approved, I don't go on to the final art. I do kind of this in between stage where I sketch everything out in pencil for the illustrations, and I just plug them right into the typed manuscript. And that way you can read the story along with the art because, oftentimes the art bridges the writing,
Mhm.
and you could see how it flows well together. And then, usually by then, any changes are kind of minor. So that's good. And then, and then I could move on to the final art, and that's all done separately. I work digitally for that. So I work right on a digital drawing tablet, and all the art's done electronically, and that takes a while. That takes a good probably 4 to 5 months to do
Wow.
all the final art.
Hey, this is Jeff from the Reading and Writing Podcast. Do you know what I love when I'm reading a great new book? A cup of tea. It's such a fun ritual. Settling down with a cup of tea and a new novel that I'm excited to read. Why not treat yourself to a cup of Plum Deluxe teas? Every loose leaf tea is hand blended, fresh, using only the best ingredients. From bold black teas to relaxing herbal blends, incredible dessert teas, or fun floral flavors, there's a delicious tea waiting for you. And I'm not making this up. They have a flavor of tea called Reading Nook Blend Black Tea. It's a tea that pairs perfectly with reading, writing, and relaxing. Plum Deluxe is a family owned business, and they have one of the best selections of delicious, flavorful herbal teas as well as bold black tea flavors. Visit plumdeluxe.com/listen and use the promo code RWP to save 12% on your first order. Tea also makes a great gift. That's plumdeluxe.com/listen and use the promo code RWP. There's nothing better than enjoying a great cup of tea with a good book. And now you can get your great tea from plumdeluxe.com.
The future will be amazing, and that's all well and good. But what about today? You can feel the rush of a 400-horsepower Nissan Z, or climb to new heights in the all-terrain Nissan Frontier. Light up the road in the all-electric Nissan Ariya that feels like a sci-fi dream come true. The future will be great, but today is made for thrill. All you have to do is get in a Nissan and drive. 2023 Ariya and Z not yet available for purchase. Expected availability is this spring for 2023 Z and this fall for 2023 Ariya.
And what kind of tablet do you use to do your art?
Sure. It's called a Wacom Cintiq, and this thing is huge. It takes up half my desk, and it's great. It works really well, and I've been using it for a long time. I used to write a comic strip, and I work digitally on that as well. I think I was just meant to work this way.
What was that? Was that initially? Can you remember? Was that kind of an adjustment for you from actual pen and ink or pencil?
It really wasn't. It was pretty seamless,
Well,
strangely enough. Yeah, the way they make these tablets, you're drawing right onto it
mhm.
using a stylus, which acts kind of like a pen, and it's so tactile. It feels like a pen or pencil dragging along a piece of paper. Um, so it's pretty sophisticated and pretty intuitive as well. So I took to it right away and just never looked back.
Well, that's great. Well, as you mentioned, and as I mentioned earlier, you had a syndicated comic strip, The Pajama Diaries. How did you go from a love of drawing and doodling to actually creating and getting a syndicated comic strip?
Well, it was a long process. Everything happened in steps. I was an illustration major in college, and by the time I graduated, I knew I wanted to be a cartoonist, and I knew it was going to be pretty difficult to pursue. But I kind of kept at it. What I did though first was I got a regular steady paying job. I worked for American Greetings for a long time. And I worked as a humorous card writer and sometimes illustrator, and that was a great stepping stone to becoming a cartoonist because I really learned how to hone my writing and editing skills and develop more of an art style as I went along. And while I was at American Greetings, I started submitting comic strip samples to newspaper syndicates. And I did this on and off for like 10 years. And at first, I was granted a weekly syndication contract for an old comic strip of mine, and I did that for 2 years, and then I quit that because I really wanted to get a daily strip, and and by then I had two little kids, and I was juggling everything, doing everything a crazed parent does, and I thought, hey, this feels like good material, so I created a comic strip about a work at home mom with two kids and a husband, and it's all about her juggling everything from family to work to everything in between. And that became the Pajama Diaries, and that was syndicated daily, and I loved it. I did that for 14 years. I was trying to make it to the 15-year mark, but the kids' books, once I started writing those, they started to get in the way, and in a great way, of course, and something had to give. So unfortunately, I had to end the strip, but it was okay. I've never looked back.
Gotcha. Well, I'm curious, do you have advice for writers or illustrators who are interested in writing or drawing their own stories or graphic novels?
Sure, sure. I get asked that question a lot. In fact, I threw up a lot of advice on my website. It's terrilibenson.com. I should probably spell that out. It's TerriLibenson.com. But I have a lot of writing tips. I have a graphic novel guide if anyone wants to create their own graphic novel, kind of a fun activity for that. I have a lot of stuff on there if young readers are and young artists are interested. But I will say that there are definitely a few tips that I would give. One would be to write what you love. Try not to write for anybody in particular but yourself, because it's going to keep it a lot more interesting and a lot more authentic. I'd also say, read a lot, because that'll also help you figure out, the kind of writing you might like to do as well, and who you admire. Always, you could be influenced by a writer you really admire. Um, and my big tip, my big trick of the trade is if you ever get stuck, to see if you could take a step back from your work for a while. I always say if you can leave your work alone for a couple hours, or better yet, a couple days or even weeks, and then get back to it, you often see everything with new clear eyes, and you can see what's working and what's not. So that always helps me.
That's great. Well, are you working on another novel now?
I am. I actually wrote the 7th book in the series. I can't tell you, I can't really give you too many hints, but
Sure.
I will tell you it's this time it is about both a girl and a boy. Um, and I really, really, really enjoyed writing this one. Much like Ruby, these two just kind of flowed out of me. And I've started the rough pencil sketches for this 7th book, so I've got an early start, so I'm really excited about it.
That's great. Well, you mentioned your website earlier. Are there other places online where people can find out more about you and your novels?
So you can find me on the HarperCollins website. Honestly, just probably Googling my name, you'll come up with a few things. Maybe some good, maybe some not so good. I don't know. I try not to Google myself too often.
Sure.
But certainly on the HarperCollins website, I think they've got an author page, and not just me, but of course all their other wonderful authors as well.
Sure. Well, again, we've been speaking with Terri Libenson, author of the new novel, Remarkably Ruby. The novel is available now, so go buy a copy. And Terri, thanks for doing this interview.
Thank you so much. It was a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you.
Summer's almost here. Yay, right? So, when's the last time you tried on your swimsuits and summer clothes? If you could get back into summer shape in one visit, would you do it? Here's Dr. Brian Strand for Sonobello to explain.
It really is quite remarkable. Sonobello doctors use a technology called microlaser fat removal, and the results are amazing. We customize your procedure to accomplish your goals. Just share with us the problem areas where you'd like the fat in inches removed. And in one visit, they're gone, permanently. I can't tell you how often I hear clients say how many years they've been trying to diet and exercise those inches away. And we did it in one comfortable visit.
It's time to get your summer on. Visit any of our Sonobello locations across the U.S., and right now you can save $250. Visit sonobello.com/save. sonobello.com/save. That's sonobello.com/save.
Time for a break to talk about another great deal at McDonald's. It's summer, you're hot, and McDonald's is here to keep you chill with their new frozen drinks. Try their medium frozen Coke, frozen Fanta Blue Raspberry, and frozen Fanta Wild Cherry for just $1.69. What a sweet way to beat the heat. Grab it through the drive-thru or order on the app. Price and participation may vary, cannot be combined with any other offer. McD app download and registration required.